You were talking, Marleen, about this whole thing about secrecy in many of these family-owned businesses. You may want to let's continue that conversation. Seems like a very interesting conversation.
Okay, yeah, we were talking about how many family business groups are fairly intransparent, I would say, or you could call it opaque, and that there's actually a reason for that. One of the reasons I talked about is that politicians may try to expropriate the wealth of these families in some way or another, which makes it interesting to keep it secret. I think I like to call it a compartmentalization. So I like to use the analogy of a ship. A ship is built in different compartments, and if there's a leak, the ship doesn't go down.
Yeah.
And I think business groups and family business groups work in a similar way. So they separate out the different parts of the business, and that has several benefits in the sense that it's easier to sell off or to acquire new businesses, but also if there's connections or political connections.
But secrecy doesn't inspire transparency. I mean, that's a big issue, right?
Yes. Yes. So
but it doesn't matter because it's private groups. Is that why? Or
no, I think the lesson that we can learn from that is that everybody always promotes transparency, but unless you take away the reason why groups are not moving in that direction, you cannot achieve this type of transparency.
And part of it is the complications of the legalities and
yes, so especially in environments where there's a lot of corruption, you will find relatively more secrecy in family business groups. So you can't just say that, okay, stop being so intransparent. You must do something about the environmental factors that cause that type of behavior.
You teach corporate strategy at NUS, right?
Yes, I teach in NUS.
Now, when you talk about strategy, it's often a misunderstood thing. People say everything is about strategy. In essence, right, how does one develop strategy? If I'm running my own business, right, how, and people say you need to have a strategy, you need to have this. What exactly does that mean?
I think you will have to come to the
MBA
MBA program of National University of Singapore and follow my class, yes. So I think strategy is a fairly high-level way of looking at companies and to broadly define the mission of the company, where it's going, and what resources the company needs to get there.
But how you take, you come up with the vision, you come up with the mission, right? But how do you make strategy executable?
Yeah, so that's the whole challenge of managers, because without execution there's no strategy, right? So from that overall planning and mission, you come down to more concrete objectives, and then you make a business plan based on those. So strategy is all about from the abstract to the action. So this is many people say many things of strategy. For example, is operational excellence strategy? Well. Well, since strategy can be seen as some sort of umbrella, so for example, operations is in a sense not strategy, but if you would decide as a company to focus on operational excellence, that would be a strategy. So the more detailed aspects of the business, I wouldn't call it strategy, but it's more, the strategy is more the overall direction of the company. So for example, things like a competitive advantage of a company, that's typically a strategic issue. So what is it that you can do better in the market than relative to your competitors? So these are the kind of issues that managers
that bring up with strategy. For example, comparative. Let's talk a little bit about that. Companies develop a certain core competence or strength. Technology comes in and destroys or equalizes that in an instance. Well, what do you do? It almost becomes redundant, right? Is strategy a one-off thing, or it's a repetitive thing, or?
Well, the great thing about companies is that they're not a victim of their environment, or they are not without their own will. So leaders are there to design strategies, and so for example, when you talk about technology, it's not like some kind of force, alien force coming into your company and destroying everything. It's about how you use that technology to your advantage. Everybody can use it in a different way. If you can use it to your advantage, that will benefit your company. So it's not like one factor that that equalizes everything. No, on the contrary, it's a great opportunity for companies to take it up and do something with it.
And if I'm in a company, like I know my company, like for example, let's say I run a newspaper. Say I run a newspaper, and I know that the print world is sort of diminishing, and I want to figure out how to transform my company from a print-based company into a multimedia company that uses all forms of media to enable my content to be transferred out. Now, I look at it, it's currently a recessionary period, right? Is this a good time for me to invest in a new strategy or take a new strategic direction? Or should I wait when things are a lot better for us to make that investment?
Yeah. Well, of course, it depends on the number of the level of funds that you have and the resources. But in general, if you're in a period of recession, it means there may not be such added value to putting more money into marketing because the demand may not be there. So you may want to use some of your resources, like your talent, to improve yourself so that you are ready for the period after the crisis. So if you have the funds to make that kind of investment, then it would be a good time to prepare the people and the organization for the new strategy.
And is financial considerations a strategy in itself? Give you good examples. I was talking to a number of different leaders of family businesses, and many of them believe that in good times you store up capital, and in bad times you be greedy and you invest. Is that itself a strategy?
Well, every strategy requires its resources. So yeah, you could say that is a strategy.
Is that a good strategy?
Is a good strategy? Well, you know, there's no such thing as a good strategy and a bad strategy. That all depends on the company. So for some companies it could be a good strategy, for others it maybe not. So I think you have to keep in line the objective of the company and what resources you need for that. So put your money where your vision is.
Or vision is, You talked about generally Western companies being one product companies. Now you have certain abnormalities like the Virgin Group, for example, that is in everything from mobile phones to even their own soda, right? And they're successful. How is that so?
Yes. So generally many large companies are fairly focused, but there are exceptions like the Virgin Group and also General Electric is another exception. So the Virgin, Richard Branson is a fantastic entrepreneur, as you know. The development of Virgin is not unlike the development of some of the Asian family businesses, in the sense that he's a creative genius and he has ideas that other people cannot conceive of. Like, for example, now he's going into space. He's organizing space tours, and he's creating companies, you know, as he creates ideas. And it's been a good model. So it's not like diversified companies which are in different businesses do not exist in Europe and the US, but they are less prominent, let's say.
And why is that, you think?
I think it has to do with a certain environment.
And also possibly the personnel? I mean, it's hard to find another Branson or...
Yes, definitely. Scarce human talent is also one reason,
But G would be another interesting example. Because it's not really about the leader, it's really about the processes and structures and so on. GE is a very well-researched company, of course, and they are active in different fields, and they've done so very successfully. They set up the systems to run this diversified. Okay, let's keep that thought, and we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back here on the Leaderonomics show.